Right, the next thing to do is to put our snare drum together. We need first the stand for the snare drum, which again you'll find in the hardware box alongside the tom holders and the hi-hat stand. It's in this box here. Now be careful when you pick this one up because it's actually in two sections, and I've seen people do this. They pick it up from the wrong end and one part comes flying out, so just be careful when you pick that up. So like I said, it comes in two sections. This is the top part, or what we call the cradle of the snare drum holder or stand. And these are the feet. Now, all the CB stuff is double braced and has 3 legs. When you open the packages up, sometimes these nuts can be slightly tightened, so you try to pull the legs out and they don't want to go. So just check that first, make sure that this is loose here, and then pull the legs out. Now, pull the first 2 legs out, and then get hold of the third one and just pull that down, and then it'll all come down together. If you just pull on 2, it'll jam up, okay? So pull the 2 out, get hold of the third one, and just pull that down like that. Now, when we put the snare drum stand on the floor, what we don't want to be doing is to have this too high, because obviously then the point of contact on the floor is very close and the snare drum could fall over. So pull these out sort of roughly like that. I'd say if you were to judge it on the bar here, you're just over halfway. Okay, again, do this nut up here, not too tight. So this is the top half of the snare drum stand. What we need to do here is this nut here needs to be undone, and we need to swing this arm out, and for now just point this sort of straight down in the same direction as the top half of the cradle. Okay, put this up like this into the top of the stand. Again, we don't know the height just yet, so anywhere along that bar there, not too high, go around halfway, tighten that nut up, again just so it's gripped, but don't over tighten. This is the cradle at the top here, and what we need to do is to pull these arms out so then the snare drum can be seated on this. Now, one thing to watch out for is when these are packaged up, you'll generally find that this bolt here, which actually clamps the drum on, is right down at the bottom. So when you put your snare drum on, the bottom head may touch the top here. You don't want that to happen. So just give that just a couple of turns just to bring that up slightly. Okay, let's find the snare drum. Now the snare drum, again, was in this box here with all of the hardware. It comes with the heads and the snares and everything already attached to it. However, it's not tuned at the moment. So what we'll do is we'll get the snare drum on and in place, and again, we'll look at tuning a little bit later. So just a quick brief on the snare drum. Unlike the toms, this is a much shallower drum, and on the bottom we have these things here called the snares, which give us that white noise kind of sound. If we would take the snares off, which you do by this control arm here, it will sound more like a high-pitched tom. Okay, so snares on, we get the white noise of the snare, snares off. This mechanism here is then designed to take the tension or put more tension on the snares. Now, again, we'll look at that in a little bit more detail in tuning, but for the moment, I mean, just have that, don't over tighten this, just sort of have this so it's kind of finger tight for the moment. Okay, but anyway, let's get the snare on the cradle and get it in position. So, be careful as you put this on, make sure that you don't hit onto the snare head at the bottom there, make sure it's sitting on the cradle evenly. What you'll find, there'll be a little bit of play in there, so we then look under the stand here, and you'll see this plastic black sort of screw thread here, and we turn that until the snare or the cradle is just clutching onto the snare. Again, don't over tighten that, you don't want to clamp the drum up, you're just holding it in position. Okay, so there's the snare. Now let's put it in position on the kit and look at a rough sort of guidance on the height here. Now, when we put the snare up into the kit, a couple of things to look for. The height of the floor tom and the snare want to be roughly the same. So let's just drop that down like that. And generally, most drummers like a slight tilt towards them. Now, this is a slightly personal thing. Some drummers do have the snare drum flat, so you can experiment with that. But let's just take it, just give it one tilt towards you like that, and that'll allow it just to sit in on the tom, on the first tom sort of level in that position there. Okay, so that's the snare drum done. So that gives us all 3 toms, a bass drum and a snare drum. So the next thing to look at is some hi-hats and some cymbals.